Hey everyone, welcome to Grafton Custom Woodworking. For this project, I want to do something a little bit different, try something. I've been thinking about getting one of these for a little while, but one of the competitors of the Box of Scrap Challenge did a lathe turning, and it really got me thinking that I really want to learn how to do this. So look what I went and got. And so here recently, I've gotten into pin turning, kind of enjoyed it a little bit. And being in Barbers Hill, our colors are blue and white, blue and kind of a grayish color. And so what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to make some epoxy with some blue and some white. And then I'm going to add a little bit of glitter in with it and try to make a little bit of swirl. And then I'll cut them and make some pin blanks, and then we can turn some pins. So I'm going to try to do it with two different types of epoxy. I'm going to do the blue with a deep pour, so that way I've got a little bit more time, and then I'm going to do the white with a fast pour, fast hardener, so that way it'll kind of start setting up, and I can try to hopefully get some swirls in it. So we'll see how it goes. One of the first things is I got this mold from Michael's, and I can pour it and then cut a couple of them to make a couple things. But first thing I do is I take this stoner, this mold release, and I will actually spray this really good, so that way the epoxy will pop out a lot easier. Just like that. And I'm going to start with the part B that's really liquidy, and I'm going to pour 15 milliliters. And then dump that in my cup. That was the hardener. And then I need, this is a 3-to-1, so I need to pour 15 milliliters 3 times. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Whoop. I really like these little medicine cups that you get when you get some cough medicine and stuff like that. Got the different measurements on it. It's real easy to measure it, and they clean out really easily. So I like using these. And usually what I do is in this cup right here, actually pour a little bit of alcohol in it, so it kind of washes out a little bit better. It's easier to clean. I'll let that sit. We'll stir this up pretty good. Scraping the sides, scraping the bottom. Alright, once we get that to a pretty clear consistency, I'm going to take some of this blue. And this is cobalt blue. If I can get it open. 1/8 teaspoon. Top it off, and I'm going to put 1. And I'm going to go ahead and put 2 of these in here. Shut that. And then I'm going to get some I'm going to put 1 of these in here to see how it works. And then we're going to stir this up really good. Once we get that mixed up really good, then we're going to pour it in our mold. Kind of see that little sparkle through it. I am getting a lot of bubbles in here, and so in order to try to minimize those so I can pop them and stuff like that, I'm not going to use that fast set, just because I don't want it to react and harden and kind of mess some of the other reactions up, and so that way I have some time to pop a lot of these bubbles. So we're going to use the same epoxy and do the same thing. And again, we'll start this one until it gets clear, and then we'll put the white in. Alright, with the white, same thing. I'm going to get my, and we're going to put 2 in here. And stir it up real good. See, when I move it all around, it gets all those different colors. And so once this kind of sets up hard enough and kind of starts getting a little jelly, then I can dump the white in, and see that sparkle. And basically what it will look like right now, if you kind of dump it in, that those colors blend in. But once I kind of get a little, once I dump it in there and swirl it around, you'll see those little white swirls in there. But with it being thick right now, those colors just blend in together. So I need this blue to set up a little bit harder so I can dump that white in. Just get that marble with the blue, and then we'll dump the white in with the marble with the white. Be awesome looking. Kind of enjoying playing with the epoxy. It's cool looking. Alright, so this one's kind of starting to thicken up a little bit, and so is the white over here. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of swirl the white in here a little bit, and hopefully we can get a good design. It all depends on what the epoxy wants to do. And basically we're going to swirl this in here. Different ways, just kind of clump it around. Just let it do what it wants to do. I'm going to take my popsicle stick, barely kind of get some of that and just kind of swirl it in there. I don't want to stir it up too much. Yeah, get you in close. Kind of see what it does. I just kind of want to grab some of it and just poke it around, and hopefully it'll make a pretty cool design. Alright, we're done. I don't want to do it anymore. So we'll let that sit for a little while and let it dry, and we'll come back and see how it looks. So now it's dry. It's the next day. You can kind of see a little bit how that formed. Hopefully once we cut it, then it will be a different, but basically we'll just set it here, and really you just twist this a little bit, pop it out on the ends, and you see with that mold release it pops right out, and put it down the bottom, and there it goes. So it just comes right out. There we go. So then your mold is pretty clean. You just have to scratch a little bit of this epoxy off, but usually it just comes right off too. So really like it. But that's it. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure it halfway here, and then cut this into 4 different pieces, and that'll be a good size for a pen blank. Here I want to try to get 4 out. So with it being 3 across, I'll draw a line in the middle, and then I'll draw 2 more lines that way, and then we'll make 4 blanks with this. And so once I got my lines here, I'm going to go ahead and take it to the scroll saw and cut the 4 out of here, and then that will be our middle. Now that I got all these 4 cut up, I'm going to put them on the sander and try to square them up a little bit, so it's easier to get the center and get them nice and even. So, we will use the scroll saw to cut it in the center, and I've got my arrows so I know which way they belong. So let's do that. Come over here and put it on here, and then just kind of smooth it down and make sure it's kind of straight a little bit so we can get our mark. Now that we got that straight, then what we'll do is we'll take our pin inserts, and basically we want to come just hair on the inside, and then we will make a mark over here just barely outside. So we'll take our pencil and right about there, just a little bit inside, we will make our mark. So it's just a hair a little bit longer. Now that we have our mark where we're at, we're going to go back over here to the scroll saw and just cut that mark off. This is what we want to do is we'll take our square and we want to find the center. So I'll go from corner to corner, lining up that corner just right on it. Come off a little bit from a pencil, and we'll draw a line, and then we'll turn it over and come the same way from corner to corner and back a little bit just from a pencil line, and then so that will find us our center mark there. All right, so now that we have our center marks, we'll take it over to the drill press and we'll drill a hole in it. Alright, now that we have the hole all the way through, we need to take our pin inserts, and because they're brass, we'll just take some sandpaper and just kind of scuff them up a little bit. And I just kind of stick it in here, and I just take some old sandpaper that really not worth anything anymore, but it's good for this. So just kind of spin it around and scuff that brass up. One thing that I found out is your CA glue cap actually will fit on here pretty good, so that will help you hold it, and then you can put CA glue in here, spin it around, put some CA glue, and then you slide it in and twist it a little bit, and then you can kind of just barely push it in, and that will actually hold it just for a second, and then you can just kind of wiggle it, and that pushes it in just right. And then from there I get my spray, now we want to let this sit for a little bit. So you want to get one of these tools, especially to chuck it up in the drill, and basically this part will go into there and it'll kind of spin, and it cleans out. If you get any super glue kind of stuck in here, it kind of cleans it out. And then also this part right here will flush it to the top. I found if you're pretty careful, you don't necessarily need to do it. Just stick it in there and kind of spin it around a little bit, and you'll feel that if there's any kind of resistance, and just turn it, and it pulls all that super glue out. You don't necessarily have to chuck it up. So just kind of spin it, and it cleans it out pretty good, pretty easily. So now, usually what happened is because we did cut these a little bit long, we'll have a little bit of gap there, and that's one thing that tool will do, is kind of flush it up to that metal. But I just like taking it over to the sander and just sanding it right up to that copper thing. So I'll put it over here and just put it here, just kind of barely touch it and tap it until we get right to that insert, and so that way and it's not much at all. So we'll go ahead and do that and flush it to the insert. So over here on the lathe, we'll put one sleeve on there, and then we'll put this one with the arrow facing that way. Then we'll put another little sleeve to go in between, and then we'll put the other piece with arrows, so that way they're facing each other. Especially for wood grain, that's where you want to kind of match the wood grain with these swirls and blues. Probably really won't matter that much, but I still like to do it. And then we'll tighten this down really good, so that way they don't spin. And then we'll bring this over and match it up in there, lock it down. We'll tighten it up, lock this down, And then we'll bring our rest over, and I want the rest just a little bit in, and once I kind of I want it a little bit lower than halfway, almost halfway, but a little bit lower than halfway. So we'll adjust this rest and we'll get started. One thing that I try to do is when I'm looking, you can kind of start seeing how it's starting to take shape, where this one is all square, and you can kind of start seeing this one a little bit round. But as this is spinning, one thing that I try to do is I look at here at the top and try to make sure if I see some that's a little wavy, I try to narrow it down, because I want this to be kind of smooth. And so one of the things also I do is I kind of look at the bottom. If I come down here and I look, and try to level myself right, you want to make sure that the line in between is the same. So that's how I try to make sure it's all even all the way across. Once I got it pretty round, I will take my round tool and then kind of start narrowing it down. One thing that I'll do is with these spacers, I kind of start getting close and kind of sinking it in, so that way they're pretty much the same diameter as this, and then I'll kind of slowly start smoothing it out and leveling it. So I'll take this here and just kind of rolling it out. So basically now I'll take my calipers kind of once I get it, and I'm just slowly just checking it. And so we'll see we're at 1066 there, 1067, a little bit high there, 1067, 66. So roughly about the same all the way. And then we'll work on this one right here and get it the same. And then we'll start on sanding. So now that I got them both to about the right size, I'm going to move my rest over, and I'm going to take some 60 grit and basically turn it on. We're just going to sand it down a little bit and just kind of run it around, rough it up. And one thing that we want to pay attention to is taking these corners here and get slowly just kind of ease the corners, just kind of smooth it down, and do that for all of these here, because we want to kind of, and then we'll go through. So I'll go through 60 grit, and then I go to 80 grit, 120 grit, 220, 320, and then I will use double alt steel wool and then 4 alt steel wool, and then I will use paper to buff it, and then we'll finish it. So let's go do that. I'm gonna take a paper, just a old piece of paper, usually packing paper that I get from when we get shipments in and stuff like that, wad it up really good. And then I just kind of put it on here and just buff it out. And then once I do that, I mean, it's got a good shine to it already. This one, I'm going to take a little bit of Odie's oil, and then with the Odie's oil, I'll just put a little bit on it. And I'll just take my finger at first, just kind of rub it around, and then just kind of spin it with my hand. Just rub it in really good, get it all over there. And then I'll just kind of take just a paper towel and just kind of wipe some of the excess off. Just kind of rub it in with a paper towel, and then just let it sit for a little while and let it kind of just start to cure, and then we'll kind of come and buff buff it off. And then just turn it on and just let it. And one thing, I do put a little bit of pressure on it just because that heat will help that Odie's oil set into that epoxy a little bit better. So I just kind of squeeze it a little bit and just let it warm up. And that's it. And we're done with the lathe part. Now we'll put the pin together. So for the pin part, we take our one little piece here and we stick it in where we want the front of it. And we will open this up, stick this in the hole there, and then butt it up against the edge here and try to make it sure it's all straight. Then we'll put these to block it, and you just slowly just kind of push it in. I like to back it up, kind of twist it a little bit, make sure that we're straight, make sure it doesn't go in crooked, and then just go ahead and seat it in. And then the next piece that we get is this little piece right here, and it's called the transmission. And so you have the gold piece or the copper piece, it goes in. So we'll open these up, line it up again, shut these down, and just slowly push it in. Back off a little bit, make sure we're centered. And usually there is a little line right there. That little line is about where you want it to the tip of here. So once you start getting close to that little line there, go slow and don't hammer it in because it will go in a lot deeper. I've done that and messed some pins up before. Alright, right as we get to that line, take it out. And so you see it's right there on that edge of that line. Then we'll get our pin part, and it slides in there. Sometimes this little, it's got glue on the tip of the pin that causes where it doesn't slide good. You got to peel it off. Stick it in there, and then it screws in. You see, and that's all the way out, and we got a little bit of in there. So screwing it, it's all the way to the tip. So that's perfect right there. That's right where we want to be. So once we get that piece, get our little bushing. Bushing will go on there, just like that. And then this section will be done. And we'll take is our other piece that we turned, and we'll take our clip, and then we'll take our butt of it, and this slides inside, and then we put that on there. Now I do like to, because a lot of these little pieces here have a little point to them, so I like to put the little point in the little hole instead of putting it on flat here, because I don't want to kind of scratch that point up. And I'm not worried about the clip right now. We'll shut these, and what we do is just barely get it on right where, and then so I can take it out, and I find where I don't really, if you got any kind of mess ups like this part right here, it's all straight blue. There's a lot of marble right there, so I would like to show it. So I think right there where that straight blue is, we'll kind of just cover it up with a pin. So you kind of find that balance where you want it to be. I like to hold it tight and keep it down, so that way I know that down is where I want it to be and it doesn't roll. And I'll just go ahead and push it in and seat it. And there we go. Then basically all you do is you just take these two pieces, push this in, and that's it. There's your pen. It actually turned out pretty good. It's got a lot of really good marble to it. Once I kind of started pulling it out of the mold, I didn't think it would be that good, but it's got some good marble in that blue. I wish there was a little bit more white than what it is, but that's all right. I poured the white a little bit too soon, but it's still, that looks really good. I like it. So I've actually made a couple of these pens now, and like I said at the very beginning of this video, I've really started enjoying doing this. It's really peaceful. So I hope that you have found some value in this, learned something. Maybe you can start doing some pen turning also. But I really appreciate you watching this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps me. And I'll see you on the next video.